Hi, this is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your weekly update in the Magnificent Seven, the Mag 7. I start with Microsoft here. By the way, this is for the week of Monday, January 5th, 2026. This is big picture. I'm going to jump to another chart in a moment. But 552.33 to 578.23 is a band of long-term channel resistance that we have tested starting last July and again as recently as October, and below which I don't have a target for 386.25, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see the channel support in the coming months. Bear in mind, this is rising channel support that'll be in the 430s by the end of the year, and so it really isn't the 380s I'm anticipating unless that were to happen soon or suddenly. So inside of all that, and by the way, before I leave this chart, very sellable resistance in the 550s, 570s on a quarterly, even annual basis, and very buyable support in the 380s and climbing on a quarterly, possibly annual basis. If we move into kind of the near term, we have had a sell signal that did play out back in mid-November, so a solid 2 months or so with no significant downside follow through. That sell signal does remain in effect below 489.97, which is the channel bottom that we did close below in November. I'm also using the high of the low that was put out in later November of 492.63 as our upward pivot point. So if we were to close this week above 492.63, I see continuation 2 to 3 months back into the 550s. Until then, holding below 489.97 maintains a sell signal status, despite the fact that we've had consolidation since. I throw this 472.12 number at you as the low settlement price on the weekly chart that, if settled below this week, didn't happen last week. We had a settlement of 472.94. If we do close this week below 472.12, I do see a follow-through selling playing out February, March, within 2 or 3 months, this 427.57, which remains, I've been calling it a 2 to 3 month target. We're 2 months into it with no follow-through, really. So, this could happen quickly within 2 or 3 months of closing this week below 472.12. The 425.36.58 downside Fibonacci in combination with the full channel extension, a doubling of this previous channel at 427.57 is your objective and bottom picking territory on a monthly, possibly quarterly basis. And it does, of course, precede this more significant 386.25. Let's move on to Meta. Meta posted a buy signal. Well, to call this a buy signal, we're really right at this descending channel top. And we have clearly opened below this channel top this week. But in terms of follow-through buying, we're in this consolidation, right? The better part of 2 months. That ends with a settlement above 673.42. And now that we're clearly above this channel top, I would see that as a meaningful buy signal. Closing above 673.42, I would anticipate a 714.212, a 5/8 upside Fibonacci within a couple of weeks. But really, I'm going to jump back to this chart. I should have it on here. Closing above 673.42, which is the high settlement price that was put out in early December. Closing above that, I do think that this 780s, 790s is a realistic 2 to 3 month target. And let's see if I can recreate that same image here. It's not letting me, but I'll at least put it there. Closing above that level that I just showed, 780, 790 is likely within, let's go with 2 or 3 months potentially, could take longer before reaching this high area again. If this 883.63 is ever tested, it may well contain annual buying pressures, but I don't see reason to consider this an objective unless we also close above 796.25. So bottom line with Meta, while we are in the midst of what I would call an open-based opening the week above this descending channel top buy signal, I don't see follow-through buying unless we close above 673.42. And inversely, if we close below 638.61, which is the low of the high that still exists from a month and a half ago, then we're expecting 558.55. So before I leave this chart, we've got a buy signal into February, March with a settlement this week in Meta above 673.42. And we have a sell signal through January into February with a settlement below 638. 538.61, expecting this meaningful channel bottom then at 558.55, where we could actually bottom out into possibly through the entire second quarter. Let's move on to Alphabet, a stratospheric rally that has really played out since April and kicked into high gear when we closed above this channel top at 228.82. We did fall back and close the gap that exists between the week of November 17th and the following week of the 24th. We closed the gap. We never closed below the gap. So if we do close this week below 306.42, I think that is sign enough to exit a long position in Alphabet. Until then, we still remain in the confines of this sort of vertical move. We've been in these consolidation phases before, and so nothing would surprise me. We could certainly close any week above this 328.83. And we're off to the races again. Another blast to the upside. I don't even want to give the expectation, although, of course, I would. I would provide sort of the full swing, which would take us, I'm doing this on the fly here, would take us up to about 361.54. In other words, that November 24 high against the December 15 low, and you flip that on its head 100%, and that takes you to 361.54 if we were to close above 328.83. No good reason to be short or to sell Alphabet. If you're long this market, stay long. If we close below 306.42, then respect this market's ability to fall all the way back into the 220s, 230s within 3 to 5 months. 220.82 remains a long-term support level that may contain selling through the rest of 26. On to Amazon. Amazon is holding above this 8 and 9 month channel bottom, is at 221.03 this week and climbing. We have yet to actually test it, but it is our base of trend support. Holding above it will keep not only 238.49 in reach, which is the low of the high, and you can see how it cuts across a series of highs and lows. 238.49 can contain weekly highs, but the more significant of these two is 221.03. Holding above 221.03 does maintain a bull market over the last 8-9 months. And with that, bear with me, we can push on into the 255.92 area. So I don't show them both in the same chart because I don't like to clutter the page. But it is something like this, holding above, and I don't even know if it's the same exact formation because we're very particular how we create these. Bear with me here. Go back to Amazon here. 221.03, your magic number, your base of support, the low 220s. I'm just going to call it the low 220s. Holding above the low 220s will keep the mid 250s in reach over the next 2 to 3 months. And if we close this week above 238.49, we could see this inside of 2 months. By the end of February, 255.92, meaningful channel top that we actually did test back in early November, can continue to contain buying on a monthly, possibly quarterly basis, and if settled above, would signal the more significant 275.43 within another couple of months. This 275.43 is yet to be tested, but it is a long-term 3-year channel top that may actually contain buying through the balance of 26 if tested. Last thing I'm going to say about Amazon is if we do close below 221.03, we have a significant sell signal through the rest of the first quarter that should spill into the second quarter. I'm going to call this a 3 to 5 month objective at 177.46 if we close this week below 221.03. Until then, if you're long Amazon, stay long Amazon above 221.03, and you can add to that position if we close this week above 238.49. Apple, we cover every single week in our paid side of wickedstocks.com. So I'm just showing one of probably a half a dozen to maybe 6 or 10 charts that we show in an 8 to 10 minute video every single week. But I do think it's worth pointing out that Apple has tested since really October and November and December this long-term 5-year channel top that is at 283.93 this week. Unless we close above this formation by a full 1% margin, this remains a market very susceptible to falling back into the 180s and climbing 5-year channel support over the next full year or so. We do have targets mapped out that are nearer term in scope, channel bottoms coming up and such for 3 to 5 week swing traders, and I would just invite you to check out wickedstocks.com for that. We do now offer a 14-day, 2-week free trial, so check that out. On to Tesla. We offer Tesla, of course, on a day-to-day basis, free on YouTube. But this is the broad brushstroke analysis. We've lowered our buyable longer-term support last week. We did have another channel bottom that is still valid. Just watch Tesla and you'll see what I'm talking about. But it is the low 400s now. Your base of support that's actually in play, holding below 473.82, which is the low of the high from several weeks ago. And we gapped below that last week, continued south. So we remain heavy below 473.82, anticipating the low 400s over the next 3 to 5 weeks. 400.14 can contain selling not only through January, but even through the entire first quarter. And from here, we can round up all the way up to new highs, 531.63, within 3 to 5 months or so of testing 400.14. 531.63 is a 5-year channel top that can contain annual buying pressures. Inversely, if we close below 400.14 in the coming weeks, we enter what I would call a midterm sell signal to what is now 305.51, the next extreme channel bottom that correlates with Fibonacci levels and such in this vicinity, speed lines. 305.51, a 2 to 3 month target if we close below 400.14. And on to NVIDIA. We had covered NVIDIA on our daily YouTube channel. We've rolled it to wickedstocks.com. This is really the broad brushstroke now. 173.26 is your base of 8-month channel support that can contain selling through the first quarter, and above which, or once tested, we can round up into this 219 to 228 region within 3 to 5 months or so of testing 173.26. If we close below 173.26, then we have a 3 to 5 month sell signal down to 125.85. 125.85 is a 2-3-year channel bottom, able to contain selling through all of 26. And I only expect it unless we close below 173.26. Holding above 173.26 will keep 201.20 in reach. This inside channel, can contain weekly buying pressures, possibly through January. We can fall away to 173.26 within 3 to 5 weeks of testing 201.22. This is kind of a 3 to 5 week swing trader's paradise, this channel band, buying 173.26, selling 201.20. If we close above 201.20, 3 to 5 week swing traders go long into this 219.64 to 228.94 region, where we actually could top out on a quarterly basis. And finally, Palantir, not part of the Mag 7, but people like it anyway. 167.81, this channel support we nearly tested last week. It certainly dropped within 1% of it. It is our base of support. We tested it already back in November, and we can continue climbing this channel, above which, believe it or not, the 245.36 channel top remains in play some point in 26. Is this in 3 to 5 months? Is it sooner? I'll get to that in a moment. But if we close this week below 167.81, all bets are off. I would expect at least 138.92 and dropping this could be within 2 to 3 weeks, given the way Palantir can spike its volatility. 138.92 channel support is dropping. You can see how this 125.41 high, this extreme channel bottom, they all come together into a single point in March. I don't think it would take that long. So what I would expect if we close this week below 167.81, 2 to 3 weeks, 138.92, we can bounce nicely from here back to who knows where. We'll see what the charts show at that time. And if we do then close below 138.92, I see the full channel extension as the next 3 to 5 week target at 96.51, anticipating perhaps a week of containment on the way down at 125.41. But I consider the 138.92 formation to be stronger than this 125.41. In fact, I'm going to get rid of that line just to sort of underscore the fact that if we did close below 138.92, 196.51 is likely within 3 to 5 weeks. Until then, holding above 167.81, there's nothing to be but long Palantir if your time horizon is 3 to 5 months. Let's jump to this next chart. Holding above 167.81, we have a high settlement price on the weekly chart that was put out in October of 200.47. This is a good kind of a near-term swing trader, 3 to 5 day, 2 to 3 week perhaps, but holding above 167.81, the point I'm making here is 211.13 in reach over the next 3 to 5 weeks. And this channel structure, you can see the spike low You can see the high, another spike low. This is a valid resistance level that may contain buying on a monthly basis. We could fill out the wedge between 167.81 and 211.13 through the rest of the first quarter potentially. And then if we close above 211.13, spike in volatility, we could then see 245.36 within 3 to 5 weeks of closing above 211.13. I hope that all made sense. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm pushing 15 minutes. I don't like to go over. I'll be back with another update on the Mag 7 next week, and you have a great week.